To go around and introduce ourselves. And I'll start by just making a little description of what we've been doing over the last few months. We've got Dr. Valancourt and Pauline, I'm sure will be up any minute. But so my name is Julie Kelly, and I'm the coordinator of Mass in Motion Fall River. And about back in March, we were awarded a grant from the Mass Council on Aging that was looking at the work that Mass in Motion has been doing, and with its focus on children and children's health and preventing childhood obesity, and thinking, well, you know, there's a whole other population that can benefit from the improvements that Mass in Motion is making regarding children. And in fact, when those improvements are made, whether they're about the food we eat, access to healthy food, or infrastructure that encourages people to be more physically active, when we do that for seniors, it improves those conditions for everyone, every age group in the whole city. So they offered. So they offered the opportunity to write a proposal for some funding. Mass in Motion Fall River applied, and the grant was given to Partners for a Healthier Community, and Dr. Dave Weed up there is executive director of of Partners, that has been around for a long time and has been trying to improve the health in its broadest sense of the whole community. So it was a great partnership. Pauline Guzzi from Fall River's Council on Aging was instrumental in directing us to look at two senior centers, Niagara and Flint, to look at issues around walkability in those two neighborhoods, really, around those senior centers, particularly access to the senior centers. And so we focused our attention primarily on those, and our presentation will be on that. We're hoping that as Eric and I go through the presentation, that if anyone has questions, or, you know, the senior champions at the table have been right out there gathering this material that you'll be seeing presented today. So we're hoping that people will feel free to ask questions or jump in, and so why don't we start with Eric? Why don't we start with you? Go on introductions.
So my name is Eric Andrade. Obviously I've worked with a number of you, but a couple people here who I do not know. So my name is Eric Andrade. I was brought on to the program as a consultant, and I've been working through the spring and summer doing the walk audits and putting all the PowerPoint presentations together. And it's been great working as a team with Julie, Marcia, and everybody involved, Pauline, Dr. Weed, Dr. Valancourt. Really just a huge team and group of people who are really working together to get this program rolling. And we hit some bumps along the way, but we really picked up our stride the last couple of months, and it's been really coming along great. So, you know, hopefully we can show you what we have so far and give you an overview of the program. And the champions will recognize some of the stuff in the slides from when they did the audits, but you get a much bigger picture of the whole thing together once we present everything. So.
Okay.
Ken Pacheco, Director of Community Maintenance. I probably am responsible for some of those bumps in the road. In charge of parks, cemeteries, streets, highways, sanitation, engineering, traffic.
Liz Dennehy, I'm the planning director. Our office works heavily with the engineering department to come up with proper specifications for roadways and that sort of thing to make sure that everything's constructed in accordance with city standards.
I'm Marsha Picard. I work for Greater Fall River Partners for a Healthier Community as the Fall River School Wellness Coordinator. I helped Julie to some extent with some of the wording and the initial grant. I did participate in some of the walk audits as a senior citizen myself. And most importantly, I've been paying Eric because I handle the books for Partners. So he and I are best friends.
Oh.
I'm Kathy Duclos. I was part of the walk audit.
Raul.
My name is Raul Eleno. Living in Fall River by 3 years. I am disabled. I like to walk. That's why all my sin I do by walking, going from my house in Barresi High to almost Tiverton border by walking. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
Perry Long, City of Fall River, Office of Neighborhood Outreach, and when Ken said he was responsible for all those bumps, he's responsible for fixing all of the bumps. And usually the phone calls either come in here to the mayor's office or to Neighborhood Outreach through many of our neighborhood meetings, and Eric's had a lot of them, or the bi-monthly roundtable, so here to listen, learn more about it.
I'm Julie Clear, a retired professor of psychology from UMass Dartmouth, current mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and I'm interested in the safety of the city of Fall River for all of its people. And I enjoy the walking, for the exercise, and the exposure to many different neighborhoods in the city of Fall River.
My name is Ben, and I'm part of Mass in Motion, and I'm going to pass it over to my left.
I'm Pauline Guzzi, Associate Director of the Council on Aging. For those of you who may be familiar with the Council on Aging, we have 4 senior centers in the city. This study concentrated on the Niagara, Maplewood, and Flint senior centers. I participated in several of the activities. Unfortunately, my schedule wouldn't allow me to do more than that, but I'm really looking forward to hearing the results of the work of all you people. Thank you.
Richard Lopes, and I think what we're doing here and going for these walks and everything else, I think is a great thing to do. I really do. I enjoy the walking. It's a good exercise, and it's nice when you go walk different places. You can see how everything is, the streets, the sidewalks, and all that. And then you mark down what needs to be fixed and everything else. I think that's great. And I hope you keep it up all the time. Thank you.
My name is Lotta Lopes, and I'm involved in the Mass in Motion. I think that's wonderful.
I'm Annette Audit. I go to Niagara in Fall River, and it was fun doing this and seeing how the city is, and I haven't lived in the city, that section, so I appreciated what they was there.
My name is Kathy Lowney. I'm a retired school teacher, and I just want to say ditto to Julie Claire's full message.
My name is Deborah Cross, and I have an interest in health and also the environment and getting more involved in the community, and I thought getting involved in something like this by actually doing it would help me know more about getting involved in the community. So it interests me, and that's pretty much it.
I'll go. Good morning. My name is Andrew Crook. I'm a lieutenant with the City of Fall River Police Department, and we've been part of the walking grant and the bicycle grant since the beginning. We've followed right through with it, addressing any safety issues that's been brought to our attention.
Dr. B?
Oh, I'm Dr. Valencourt, Director of Community Services. I'm Julie's boss.
Sure.
Says it all.
Okay, so we'll get started. So this is the Healthy Design Champions program, and we're just going to go through. It's kind of a summation of all the major points of the audits. All of the information that are in the packets could not be squeezed into the time frame that we have into the PowerPoint. So we're going to touch on the major topics, the recommendations that we came up with, and also a brief overview of the beginning of the project, and then the more casual, fun aspect of the project that we had with our recreational box. So a little background, it's the Healthy Aging Initiative. This is a pilot program. It's the first time that this has been done in a city like Fall River. It was funded through a small grant provided by the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, Pauline, and Dr. Valencourt. And also it was funded in part by partners of their community. So we initially identified some objectives. It was to identify senior champions throughout the community to really help us with these walk audits and help us gather all this information. And we started out working with the Flint and Niagara senior centers, and found out that the senior population there was really an older population. They weren't as mobile, and they weren't really interested as much in doing the audits as they were going out for having recreational walks. So we really opened and branched out to get the people that we have here today, who are much more active, and who have really been a core group because they've been out there almost every week in the summer doing these audits, and it's really great to have a nice core group that have been doing it all the time. And then our first audit was conducted by Walk Boston. They were the ones who did the training on how to properly do a walk audit. They gave us the template for the form to mark everything down during the walk audit. And we did that one at the based out of the Niagara Senior Center on Tucker Street. And we split into two groups. One group went down to Route 81, William S. Canning, and then the other group went up to Maplewood and Stafford Road. And then once we collected all that data, send all of it to the city departments, which we're doing here today, to have our overview. That way we can all touch base with each other. So in the beginning of the program, what we also did was we started engaging the seniors at the Niagara and Flint Senior Centers about their perceived notions of walking, where they felt safe walking, what they thought was a great walking area in the city, or where they didn't feel safe walking, areas that they thought needed to be improved. So we tried to get a sense of both from the people that we talked to. And they identified some concerns such as sidewalk conditions, the perceptions of crime, whether it be realistic or not, more perceived or what it actually was, and how that inhibited walking in their area, and traffic flow, as well as aesthetics, benches, trees. And then we also did 4 trolley trips for recreational walking. We did 2 to the south of Tupper, 1 from each senior center. And then we did a couple of trolley trips a couple weeks ago, 1 to Battleship Cove and 1 to the pond at BCC. So that was more recreational, and we had a good turnout for all of those from the senior centers. They had a blast. This is a picture from the BCC, and those are the women from the Flint Senior Center.
Excuse me, Laura, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to be late. Laura from the Traffic and Parking Division.
Thank you. And I might add, responsible for all the new crosswalks going down Pleasant and down here around City Hall with the keyboard striping.
What was talking about that? So in total, we did 6 audits. 4 of the audits were reachable as destinations from the Flint Senior Center. 2 of them were reachable from the Niagara Senior Center. And then we did 1 at North Park. That was our last audit. So the common issues that we found between all the audits, overgrowth and trash was a problem in a few areas, as well as there were tripping hazards on the sidewalks. Traffic flow, crosswalks, and curb cuts. So, maybe the lights, the way that traffic worked, was really difficult for a pedestrian to cross a certain area, or there weren't crosswalks in a certain area where there necessarily could have been to prevent jaywalking, because that also happens a lot too, as well as areas where curb cuts really could go where wheelchair access is pretty much inhibited because they can't get onto the sidewalk. So we're going to talk about overgrowth and trash first, and this is one example that we found on Tucker Street, where on going north towards Stafford Road, there is a lot of overgrowth. This is on the intersection of Tucker and Carl.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the intersection of Tucker and Carl, and here's a curb cut, and there's a lot of overgrowth and debris, and this goes pretty far up the sidewalk. And then the second picture is of Alden Street, which is really cluttered with trash and overgrowth around the area of the mills. And I know it's private property, so then that gets a little iffy gray area when you're trying to clean it. But it was really bad. We took a walk there the other day, and it was pretty littered. And then Quikishan Street is also another area where there's a lot of trash and overgrowth. We did an audit around the Walmart area, Jefferson Street, and this is very frequent. We found big patches of overgrowth with various trash piled up inside of it. And then we also have tripping hazards as a problem. So these 2 photos are taken on Pleasant Street just in front of the Flint Senior Center. So there is a small tree stump sticking out, and it gets tricky when you have, in this picture in the corner, there's bicyclists coming on the sidewalk toward you, which they're not supposed to be riding on the sidewalk. So when you're a pedestrian, you have to move out of the way And it's really small, so sometimes you might not see that tree stump and you could trip over it. It could be a potential hazard. And then a little further north from that is that big pothole, which is pretty sizable in comparison to the person's in the picture's foot. So that's definitely another tripping hazard. And the audits also found a lot of tripping hazards that were resultant of utility work that was done. So for example, this section of the sidewalk was cut out and there was a 2x4 placed there. So you had to come up onto the 2x4 and then back down into the pit if you wanted to get by, if you didn't have enough room to get by this small section. But it wasn't marked. And as well as, various cracks in the sidewalk like this or a big pallet like that, the change in elevation can really make, especially for seniors, tripping a hazard because they're not used to walking at that elevation or they're used to walking at a certain elevation and the change trips them up and they can fall, which can be very dangerous. And then these two were next to Flint Village on Pleasant Street. So there's a lot of sections of Pleasant Street where there's a brick decor around a tree, and we found that the trees are usually uprooting the bricks, and the bricks are kind of scattered, and it makes it really hard to get across, especially for a wheelchair. There's no flat surface for them to get across now because this takes up a good portion of the sidewalk. And there was one tree that had uprooted this portion of the sidewalk into a teepee, which again makes it really hard to pass. And Pleasant Street's a very busy street, so if you wanted to cross to the other side of Pleasant Street, it's very hard with the traffic and not having a close crosswalk to go to. And then these are at North Park on President Avenue, where a large stretch of the way up the Seven Hills on the North Park side is, has large chunks of sidewalk missing. So that is also another tripping hazard. Anybody have any questions so far?
Or any comments from our champions?
Oh, it brings back memories.
Especially that one where it really was all uphill. God, I never walked that hill before. Oh.
Hey?
Yes.
Jefferson Street is the sidewalk is very bad. I fell down there. Just last Friday. Even I report that situation, but I was distracted, talking through my phone, and I fell down, hit my face, my knee, my arm. So condition like that is I can say like almost 40% of the sidewalk, the same side, like coming from Walmart to the end of the Jefferson Street.
Brayton Avenue?
No, after that, yeah. After where the company, land company is located, that's the end of the Jefferson Street. So that portion of sidewalk is very bad.
Yeah, we'll show
There is a situation, 6 inches, one step higher than the other.
He wasn't with us on that walk, so he doesn't, that was that walk, that area?
Yeah,
that was really, really bad.
But he walks there all the time.
Yeah.
So he's saying
He knows it, yeah, but when we did the audit there, he wasn't on that one, so.
Yeah, the change in elevation really can impact a person's walking habits if they're used to walking a smooth surface and something changes.
Plus the overgrowth there and all.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is traffic flow, fog lines, crosswalks, and curb cuts. They're all kind of tied together because a lot of the areas that we found that may have had an issue with crosswalks would have an issue with many of these items. So the first area that we want to focus on is Tucker Street. So right now there is no crosswalk in front of the senior center, which can cause a real problem. I know Pauline mentioned a story where there was an elderly gentleman trying to cross and he almost got hit by a car because he really had to jaywalk to get across the street.
Yeah, he actually felt them there. I mean, they fly down there, and he's probably 93, I would say, yeah. So that was definitely one of the main, I just hope that there's something that we can do, because the parking lot is very limited, so a lot of people park on Tucker on the other side of the street and need to cross.
Exactly, so there's typically, if the senior center is full, there's a parking that stretches down the street. And for months we had operated under the assumption that there was no crosswalk at all anywhere near the senior center, but there actually is. We found this out a couple weeks ago. It's, in this picture, it's right here at the entrance of this driveway. There's a faded, very faded crosswalk that was there at one point. So
How far down from the center, Eric?
it's hard to judge from the picture, but if this is the driveway, the crosswalk's like right here. So and then there's a
That's
senior
the
center.
senior center there where those trees are.
Yep,
That's on the opposite side.
so it's on the opposite side. But there was a crosswalk there at one point. We had thought that there was no crosswalk between the only crosswalk closest to that area would be on Lamford Street, which is just before the senior center, where the school and the Holy Trinity church is. And we thought that there was no other crosswalks going all the way down to William S. Canning, but there's actually that crosswalk, and there's also a very faded crosswalk. It's probably hard to see from everybody's positions, but there's also a faded crosswalk here in front of the daycare on Carl Street. So
I would say greater than
You know,
500 feet.
Yeah. Those might have been there when the church was there. When
Yeah.
St. Elizabeth's was there. It might have been, that's why it's so faded and it's gone so long ago.
What you'll find in the packets on the left hand is the audit from Walk Boston. All of the seniors champions went out with Walk Boston. That was part of the training, and this report is the results of that. And they definitely call for a crosswalk at the senior center, just because of the speed of traffic. And there are other recommendations. As you go through the packet, you'll see recommendations that, this is kind of an overview, but for in-depth, we recommend that you look at the packet and the.
So one of the recommendations that we're thinking of is, if it's possible, since there is parking on both sides of Tucker and the cars are flying down, if it would be possible if fog lines could be added to the areas where the cars are parking, so it narrows the traveling lanes of, going east and west on Tucker. So that way cars, psychologically, the drivers are thinking that they don't have as much space or room to really barrel down the street the way that they do, because they certainly barrel down the street. It makes it even very difficult for someone my age to cross, and I can just run across the street. But
I agree. Absolutely, because I always park on the street, and it's tough, real tough.
And then also, if we were to implement a crosswalk, it would need to be, a curb cut would need to be added, because there currently is none in front of the senior center. So that is something that would need to be added.
Raul, did you want to add?
Yeah, yesterday, the bus terminal? Bus terminal?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the street, but I saw a taxi cab going into there is a street with a white line in the middle. But close to the entrance to the bus terminal, there is a bump.
A bump out.
And the taxi cab go over the sidewalk. And one tire got flat. It was like an explosion. Boom! Everybody. So I recommend it. Paint with yellow, because coming from a divided street to single street. So you need to paint something.
So then this is the top of Tucker at Stafford Road, and we've seen a real improvement. This is July of 2014 that this picture was taken when we did the first audit with Walk Boston, and then probably not even a full month later in August, we already have this nice bright piano key crosswalk here. So it's just showing the comparison, how vastly different these two look. And driving around the city now, seeing all these new crosswalks, you definitely notice them immediately. Driving down Eastern Avenue, when they were first put in, I immediately knew that they were new, because they just, my eyes caught them very fast. So it's definitely noticeable.
One of the things, and Lieutenant Crook, maybe you can speak to this is some of these things have so much to do with the speed of traffic and traffic kind of ignoring what speed limits are, and so reducing that, and so the fog lines, or in this case, you know, the question as to whether a three-way stop sign could be put up onto Stafford, because the Stafford drivers are really moving, and as we saw, people coming up Tucker, there's a stop sign there, but they kind of have to edge out into that crosswalk to see, you know, whether they can navigate their way around the corner. When Walk Boston was here and presented to the department heads and then did the training with the senior champions, they talked about these in-road stop devices, like a sign thing that goes right in the middle of the crosswalk. And so I think that's something that we'll want to, you know, talk with Laura about, and Ken. But it's interesting, when we went to Baresi to speak to the people that live there, there's one of those out in front in the crosswalk of Baresi, and they said that people will come along, they'll see someone trying to, you know, crossing on the crosswalk, and although it's 2 lanes, traffic going both ways, if there's no one coming, they will just swerve right around that marker. And they included the police on that as well. That, you know, so we've got multiple problems, I think.
I think when we spoke last time, and obviously I've worked with Laura on our other bicycle grant, is that there's a fine line, like, between education and enforcement.
Yeah.
And as I've been sitting here, I've been taking notes, and our motor vehicle unit, they're out there every day. And I think it's best that, you know, maybe we address a little bit of enforcement issues, have the professionals take a look at it, and see, is that the location where we need a marker in the middle of the street? Do we need to move the stop sign? And so as I've been sitting here, I have, you know, a full page of notes already of things that we'll certainly address. But I think we spoke before, is that there is that fine line between, you know, going out there and giving tickets. Is it as effective as maybe educating people to say, you know, and we're doing both now, and it's working. So, you know, I have to say, let's let it go, and we'll continue.
Great.
You know, I think we're in the right direction. That bicycle grant has allowed us a lot of time in that area of Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
A lot of time. We're there 5 hours a week, so we've learned a lot about that particular area. And I think, you know, as time goes on, we can spend more time in other areas.
If maybe many people don't know, along with this grant, the police department received a highway safety improvement grant looking at bicycle and pedestrian safety in areas in the city where there are the most accidents involving pedestrians and cycles. So, so the two have been going.
Pleasant Street just happens to be one of our areas of weekly education and enforcement. So we've spent a lot of time on Pleasant Street. We've educated a lot of people. You know, we're out there, you know, 5 hours. We're interacting anywhere from 15 to 25 people a day, just on education, formal education of crosswalks, stopping at crosswalks, stopping at stop signs, you know, double lines. And we're also talking to the pedestrians too. The drivers across from store to store, you know, there are cars illegally parked on every corner. So we're out there, and I've seen an improvement, you know, because they know once a week there's somebody out there. And as soon as they see them either walking the beat, on the bike, in a car, whatever it is, Pleasant Street is, you know, it's safe, it's passable, and so it's been very effective for us.
Great.
Okay, so then the first audit that we conducted as a group ourselves, separate from Walk Boston, was in the Flint, and it was along Pleasant Street, and we ended up winding down to Alden Street and making a loop around. So I just want to point out that this crosswalk, when we did our audit, there was no crosswalk in front of Cattell Heights. There's a lot of elderly people that are trying to cross the street all the time, especially with all the markets on this side of Pleasant Street. But we're very glad to see that there is now, you know, a very vibrant crosswalk there, and I definitely tell that it's helping, because now people are more reluctant to jaywalk when they have a nice clean path to go through for walking. So we made our way down Webster next to Cattell, and we got to Alden Street, and the first major thing we noticed is that at the intersection of Alden and Everett, this is where the church and the Espiritu Santo School is, that this intersection has no curb cuts. So the crosswalks have been addressed. Obviously, this was in July, and this picture was taken as a couple of weeks ago, but those crosswalks have been there. But there are no curb cuts, which presents a real problem for somebody in a wheelchair trying to access the school or the church. They'd have to travel further down Alden Street and able to get to one side of the street. And it becomes a problem when, like the other streets that we've talked about, cars are speeding down Alden Street quite often. They're not, when we were doing our audit, I believe one woman who was in a car actually blew a stop sign at the church, and she just kept going. So it's a real problem trying to cross streets when you have to maneuver or as a pedestrian around different areas of the streets and able to cross to where you're going, when areas like this, there could potentially be a curb cut there put in at some point to really help pedestrians get across where they want to.
If I could, Eric,
Yeah.
on the cuts, both from a traffic, engineering, public works standpoint, but also I serve on the Disability Commission. And if you look at this intersection, the one thing you have to keep in mind when we put those detection pads, when you see those colored pads, the bumpy ones, that's for someone who's blind. So they need to know what direction, and they use that pad for their direction. So if on this particular piece, the common fix for this would be to put 4 pads facing so you could hit them with both crosswalks. The problem with that is a blind person would get there and walk diagonal. So the blind person would go right across the street this way because they're thinking you're sending them in the right direction. So the proper way is to put a pad here and here, here and here, so that you send them across the street rather than diagonal through an intersection. The problem that creates, okay, is an intersection like this. Each one of those pads installed is probably $1,000. So for every corner, you have $2,000. So this is an $8,000 renovation. Multiply this by the 500 to 1,000 intersections across the city. We're talking millions of dollars in just detection pads. And that's not including any of the other problems that this intersection has, which is the pole is in a bad place. So the utility company would have to move that pole in order for us to have the proper pitch to put a detection pad there. There's a whole bunch of things that go on. So as much as we would like to take care of this, this problem exists all over the city, and the only fix, unfortunately, is dollars. And that's why a lot of these things go on and on and on, because there's the money that it takes to address one intersection is difficult enough. The amount of intersections we would have to address becomes an issue. The Disability Commission makes it a point to expend a certain amount of money each year doing some city work such as this. The Disability Commission receives all of the violations from anybody who's parking illegally in handicap spots. So that's how they donate or give money to the city to fix a lot of intersections like this. So I would guess that this may not be the only one in the Flint area. I know it's not the only one in the Flint area, but that's one of the issues that we struggle with to try and address situations like this.
Mr. Pacheco,
Yes.
are there also issues involved in putting a curb cut at a non-intersection,
Sure.
middle of the street?
Mid
Is
block,
that really allowable? I thought the
it's
state...
difficult. It's
Okay.
difficult to do, and anytime we go against standard practices or state suggested practices, sometimes we're creating a problem. We're creating problems for the person who gets into an accident in those areas because the insurance companies look at standards and practices from Mass Highway. So it also gives us issues
Right, that's why I wanted to bring
with
it
that.
up. That
Mid-block
putting a
crosswalks
mid-block
are an issue.
curb cut is not, what you're doing now is going against standard practices, which raises liability issues
Right.
for the city and for someone who may get in an accident.
I agree with Eric, and it's proven fact that the lining streets becomes a very important piece of slowing traffic down. And to Julie's issue with bike paths, if you can take a street that's as wide as Pleasant Street and bring in parking areas, put in a bike path, and now you have 2 small lanes for people to travel in, and the psychology behind that works. So that you have your double line, you have a small little travel lane, you have all of this activity going on the side with a bike path and parking spots. You've now created a situation where people are forced to slow down because the road looks so narrow.
Then if you go a little further down Alden Street, and this is the intersection with Quikasham. And this is another problem area that we noticed, where with vehicle traffic flying down, Alden has a stop sign, but Quikasham doesn't. So the cars on Quikasham are flying down, and it creates a real bottleneck for traffic when they're trying to turn. And cars coming from Quikasham up closer to Alden are making very blind turns, very fast around this corner. And there only is one crosswalk currently at this intersection, and that's on the corner of Quikasham, right here. This is a photo from 2012 that I took from Google Maps while I was looking through. There used to be a crosswalk here on Alden, but it's faded, and during the repainting process that's going on, all that was repainted was a brief stop line. So there's just pictures saying that there at least was a crosswalk there, and I think it would be helpful, if it can be done, if there was a crosswalk going across Alden to really, make vehicles see that this is a potential for crossing, especially when you're trying to cross from the neighborhoods on the opposite side of Alden to get to the mills over here, as opposed to having to cross Quikasham, go down Alden, and then jaywalk back across Alden. You can just easily get across right here, but with vehicle traffic, it makes it very difficult when the cars are speeding and flying into these corners. Anybody have anything? So then this is going up Quikasham Street, and this is just a comparison photo. This is a crosswalk in July in front of Head Start, and this was as of a couple of days ago. That crosswalk has been brightly repainted. That was another one. And then one thing that we noticed was at the rededicated tot lot on Quikasham Street, there's crosswalks going across the side streets here, but there is no crosswalk going across Quikasham for the children or the families on the opposite side trying to cross the street into the tot lot, which may be difficult because it's so close to Pleasant Street. I think that it might cause traffic to, I don't know how close you can put crosswalks.
Again, as we were talking about mid-block crosswalk, it's a perfect example. I don't know how people react to once they take a turn, how quickly you can give them another possible stop, and whether or not they pay attention to it. And to be totally honest, most crosswalks without the cones most people are not stopping all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a cone, if there is a marker in the crosswalk that is forcing people. Again, I think that what that does is slow people down because it's in the road.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one more thing they have to navigate around. And in a situation like this, if you're going to add another crosswalk across Pleasant, across Quikasham, it may be too soon when you get to that point, right?
Yeah. So then we're going back down Pleasant, and we're making our way to the intersection of Pleasant, Quarry, County, North Quarry, a big web of street. And what we found was people were trying to cross, pedestrians were trying to cross, they would, especially if they're coming from Flint Village, they would hop onto this island, and then they would cross, if, say they were going to Price Right or they were going onto North Quarry. And it becomes a real, risk when on Pleasant Street on this side, there's 2 lanes that merge into one lane going onto Pleasant Street, and on the opposite side, there's 2 lanes on Pleasant merging into this one lane. And you also have traffic coming from County trying to merge too. So it becomes a really bad situation when a pedestrian is trying to cross. And I think I mean, I'm not sure, is it possible to put a curb cut on an island like this?
If you look at Plymouth Avenue, all of that new construction, all of your islands are cut curb, with curb cuts.
Because we were, you know, thinking about it, again, if you're in a wheelchair, how do you get across this mess? Because it'd be really difficult. You would have to cross from Pleasant, across Quarry, and then cross Pleasant again, and then cross County if you wanted to come here when, you know, potentially a crosswalk here and a curb cut, sorry, would ease that, you know, ease that path.
In an intersection like that, I'm guessing that the entire intersection needs to be redone with push pads so that you'd be able to stop traffic when you're trying to cross. I can't imagine how you could cross that street without crossing aid.
You have to run. I pushed the button. The button took a while to stop the traffic because there's so many lanes, and then you have to run because there's not enough time for you to get across two streets with just one light. Push of a button.
The other day, like a week or maybe two, I saw an accident with a truck and a small car in that point.
At that point. And it's a very, Serped has identified this as a very dangerous intersection. They've done a report on it saying that for vehicle and pedestrian traffic, I believe it's one of the risky areas.
Is it easier to do a curb cut, or is it easier to do a break right through the island like they do to the entrance to?
That would be it. It would be a break through the island.
Easier way,
yes.
all the way straight through.
Yes.
I just want to, in terms of the presentation, and I've spoken to Laura about this, you know, these last three areas, which are mostly around crossings, that the senior champions identified as problematic, will probably require engineering and planning and traffic and police. So we realize that, you know, we've kind of gone upping the ante here with what were smaller issues to these great big issues. So there's, I think, 3 or 4 of them that Eric's going to go through. But we realized, and as Laura said to me the other day, is prioritize them because, you know, these are involving quite a bit of thought and planning and engineering. So we're just going to now go through, starting with this one as the major one, but then continuing down Quarry to Quickshan. So,
Well, with that intersection, you have to keep in mind that you do not want to put the crosswalks close to the intersection. Because of the width of that intersection, what you want to do is you want to put the crosswalk away from the intersection. Just because of the way it's so wide. And if we take a look at Plymouth Avenue, all their crosswalks are going to be at least 10 to 15 feet away from the intersection itself. And that's one of the codes on the manual uniform division book. At an intersection like that, you really don't want to put a crosswalk going across that small medium there. You want to do it further away from it so that, because you're going to have cars block the crosswalk if you put it there. They do it on the opposite side because the opposite side, the crosswalk's a little further up because unfortunately you don't have any curb cuts, so we utilized the entrance into the driveways. And one of the biggest issues that we have in the last 10 years, handicapped people have been a lot more active in going out. Some of the crosswalks that you see that are not put back is because there is no curb cuts. And legally you can't put a crosswalk there because if a wheelchair tries to utilize it, they tip over. A perfect example, when we were fixing the city hall and we put a temporary crosswalk, we actually had the Committee on Disability say if you don't put a ramp there, you're going to get fined. And we had to put, you know, tar ramps until the building wasn't fixed. So, and like I told Julie, you really have to study the intersection and really come up where would the crosswalk go best.
I'm looking at time, so we want to
If I could,
so we have
Julie.
some discussion time at the end.
Julie, I really need to get
Yep.
out of the meeting,
Thank
but
you.
I thank everyone for the help. It's extremely valuable to my department, to the city, that this is a major help to us. in planning for the future. And as Julie just said, a lot of these items are large items that are going to require engineering and study to get them done. And you know, Laura's great suggestion about prioritizing. There's a lot we can do now for a little money, and those are the ones we will gladly address as quickly as we can, and then we'll work on the ones that are a little more difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start going through these a little more quickly. This is Quarry Street going down back towards Quequechan. This was just one of the audits that we had where it's very difficult to cross Quarry because there are no crosswalks other than the one on Pleasant. And then if you go all the way down Quarry to the intersection with Quequechan, as we'll see in a little bit, there's a faded crosswalk there. But it's very difficult with cars, once again, speeding down because they have such a wide path, and there's constantly pedestrian traffic going across because there's businesses, large commercial units. You have Flint Village, and then the Dollar Tree, the gym on one side, Dunkin' Donuts, and there's a couple of, you know, commercial units on that side. So it becomes a very dangerous situation. And in this picture, for example, the group was trying to cross, and we had to wait because this UPS truck was blocking our path up. We had to wait to cross to the other side because cars were just flying and not really letting us go.
What struck me too, and I heard this a number of times, was the annoyance that the drivers showed at people trying to cross the road. You know, it's my road, and get back,
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way, yeah. And I heard that on Stafford, trying to cross Stafford. I heard it, from a variety of people over the course of this project. That's maybe an issue for education and
So once
other.
you reach the bottom of Quarry, I mean, there are curb cuts around this bend, and then there's a faded crosswalk. So I think that would help alleviate traffic. But I was walking this area the other day, and there was a gentleman on this side of the island trying to cross across Quequechan, and cars were just not letting him go. They just completely ignored him. But technically he didn't have a crosswalk. So I think as a driver, maybe you're thinking, oh, he's not in a crosswalk, I don't have to let him go. I mean, even if the law is to yield to pedestrians. So this intersection we chose because there's only one stop sign when you get to the bottom of Quarry. And again, it's a problem where traffic gets bottlenecked because Quequechan is constantly flying. They're not letting anybody go. People on Quarry are getting angry. They're inching up. And it just becomes a real hazard for people trying to cross the street. We tried to cross to that side of Quequechan to go back towards the Walmart. And it was a real hassle trying to cross because the cars on Quequechan were just, there was a constant stream of traffic. So this intersection we're thinking about, would it be possible or difficult to put stop signs on Quequechan?
What happens with stop signs is you always want to put the stops on the less traveled roads. And that's the guidelines that we have. If you're going to do a 3 or a 4-way and you want to add stop signs to a very heavy traveled, you have to do a study of how many pedestrians, and that includes pedestrians, bikes, the volume of what they are. Then you discuss it with the police department and you see how many reports, and that's the only way that you can make it into a 3 or 4-way. But they really don't want to see stop signs on a busy thoroughway because that's where your accidents happen the most.
And then the Quequechan River Rail Trail is going to connect all through. So I think, part of this is sort of looking to the future and saying that the Flint neighborhood will be a very active, will continue and grow as a very vibrant and active part of Fall River. And so these issues are probably going to just continue to be pressing on all the departments of the city in making sure that everybody is safe.
So this is just an alternate angle of that intersection showing the faded crosswalk. It's a little more faded now, actually, but there are curb cuts there.
Eric, could you kind of go quickly?
Yeah,
we've got 10 minutes, and I'd like to open it up a little bit.
Yep. So this is the intersection of Quequechan, Warren, and Jefferson, where there are stoplights. The crosswalks have been really faded out here, and it was another issue when we were trying to cross across the street while we were doing the audit. And then this push button right here at this pole next to the sign actually doesn't work. You try to push it and it's stuck. So I don't know if it was a private company that put all the...
No, yeah, I'll take care of that.
Yep.
And it's like that now, or
It
was
was
it?
when we did it in August.
In August?
I can check and get back to you. If
No,
it's still
yeah,
like
no,
that.
I can have someone too.
And, you know, just to show you what the traffic division is up against, we talked about this crosswalk, because how long has Walmart been there? Maybe a year?
A year.
A year, and yet, look at that from the traffic. That, I thought that was a dotted line, and Eric's saying, no, that's a crosswalk. So that's how much traffic crossing that paint on the road makes a difference, and especially, I'm sure, with the winter and, you know, the bad winter that we had. So it's a lot. And they have such a short time to get work done.
Yeah, and this is a little further at the intersection of Jefferson and Cambridge at the entrance to the Walmart, where there's only a stop sign on Cambridge, so cars are, you know, really barreling down Jefferson if they're not turning into the Walmart or trying to turn. So I was here this morning, and I was sitting at the stop sign for a good couple of minutes trying to inch my way into the street because it took forever. But this is another, I mean, just had a discussion on the stop signs and putting three-way
That's
it would
under
need.
study right now.
Oh, okay.
Great, great.
Alright, so we're just going to, this is kind of the summation, so major obstacles. So vehicle speed and the flow of traffic is a major obstacle, as we've been discussing. So these are our suggestions for traffic calming measures would be fog lines, as we talked about and Ken said, really, you know, psychologically slows the driver down. Crosswalks at the major intersections that we have highlighted, which would be Pleasant, Quarry County, and then Quarry, Quikasham, Jefferson, Warren, Quikasham, Alden, and then I think it's on this list, but Quikasham, Jefferson and Cambridge too, which we just saw, where there's really no crosswalks. And then also the placement of the in-street crosswalk signs to really slow traffic down. And then also the enforcement of speed limits and texting while driving. Can't tell you how many people I've seen on their phones while driving. That's really part of the problem. And then also the enforcement of traffic signs, lights, and the crosswalks, because a lot of times vehicles completely ignore it. And then also the second obstacle would be pedestrian hazards. So we're suggesting repair and maintenance to ensure accessibility and safety. The walking surfaces are smooth and level, as multiple people have said, you know, uneven surfaces can really trip a person up. Snow removal, making sure paths are clean, because that's one of the things in our discussions with seniors that really they worry about in the wintertime, and it really prohibits them from walking in the winter and fall. So handicap accessibility, having adequate ways to get across the streets, including curb cuts, removal of obstructions, and maintaining a clear path so overgrowth really getting in the way. And then a mechanism to alert pedestrians of obstructions. So we've noticed on some utility cuts that there's neon paint around it, which really brings out the cut, and you know, really if you're looking at it, can make you aware that the cut is there. And then also aesthetics and amenities, having benches available for seniors to rest if they're walking too far, and if they go too far and they need to sit down. Ensuring trash is removed from public space, that way it beautifies the area and encourages walking. Trees for shade and landscaping. And then also spotlighting local destinations, which we are working on. We're putting together a brochure of all the great walking areas in the city, so we'll have that out hopefully by next week. We can have that out and we can pass that around. All right, and that's it. So open up to discussion.
I think one thing that we all know that, you know, walking is probably the exercise that most people participate in. Everyone walks to the largest degree that they can, and that in making a city have complete streets where people can walk and people can bike and people can take public transit as well as automobiles, it encourages people to be more active, it motivates them. The result is that they're healthier over the long term, and we all know that we're all living longer. And so we have far more potential to be disabled, to be restricted in our movements. So I think that it's a real partnership of the community and the city departments coming together, knowing that this is the future, us all growing older and hopefully staying as active as possible. And the whole idea is, that if you don't pay out now, you're going to pay out later, because as people become disabled, and we see, diseases like diabetes, heart disease, fear of stroke, hypertension, they all begin to result in people being less active. And if we can keep them active, particularly as they're younger and aging, then they'll stay healthy longer, and that will be reduced in our medical bills and the infrastructure of keeping people healthy. So anyone have?
I'd just like to say what a fabulous job Julie and Eric, Marcia, whoever worked on this. I think
All the seniors,
and
all our
the senior
volunteers.
walkers, I'm sorry, the senior champions. My God, how can I forget them? I learned a lot here, definitely, and there is a lot to be done. But I think with the help of people like Laura, it will get there. But it needs to be, like you said, prioritized and pointed out, and bring it to the forefront. So, thank you.
I'd like to advocate for citizen input, because I see a crosswalk where citizens are trying to get across and the cars just speeding by, in particular on Bedford Street, just north of Main Street. The lifelong learning, UMass Dartmouth Senior Citizen Lifelong Learning, there are two huge parking lots where the citizens park, and there's a crosswalk there. But it's noticeable that the cars don't stop. But it's only like a block and a half from Main Street, so they've been stopped at the stoplight. And obviously they don't want to stop again, but it's become a real danger for all the senior citizens who are taking the courses across the street. I think it's 205 Bedford Street, that red brick building. And the courses are going from 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. It's that organization, UMass Dartmouth Lifelong Learning, the second half has over 300 members. So a lot of people are crossing the street to take those courses. And I don't know how it could be, because the cars just whiz by.
I think part of it's education, too, educating the public.
Yes,
to
yes.
The meaning of these things. It's very
Maybe
interesting
if we could jot down license plates.
I don't know, some way to make people aware of, the purpose of some of these things, because that was a real eye-opener for me. I took these things in the city for granted, and really didn't notice the wear and tear on the places and the lack of speed signs and things like that. But really, when we learned about it, it really made such perfect sense. And I'm thinking that there are probably a lot of other people out there that are not aware of the significance of it. And how you do that, I don't know, but I think that would be important.
That's one area that we can put a pedestrian cone, because it's a one-way, so you don't have traffic traveling an opposite way. So I could have my guys drop off a cone there. The only problem is when it's large vehicles like a truck or an 18-wheeler, they really don't care. They run right over those, But that could be a start. We can try, and I know the area that you're talking about. We can try putting a pedestrian cone there. With the education part, we are trying through the traffic division. Yeah, we're trying. Sergeant Mace and his crew are excellent, and they have ideas of educating not only people our age, but as well as teenagers who are starting to drive. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up, when it comes to a crosswalk, it's just not people crossing the crosswalk, but you have to be aware of this everything. And we want to refresh people who've been driving, myself for so many years, that things are not like they were 20 years ago. Things are a lot different. Speeding tickets, citations are a lot more expensive. Losing your license. So we're trying to do that, but unfortunately it takes work, hours, manpower, so we're gonna try to do it with 3 people. But our goal is to start educating the teenagers that are in high school.
What about the driver ed programs?
We're gonna go there also.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
that
we're
would be
gonna
a
go
way to
meet with
reach
them,
them.
yeah, and the parents, they have like a parent, 2-hour parent session that I think is really boring. And I think that if you bring something like this where you have paperwork and all of that, and you talk not just about crosswalks, but about everything, speed, telephone, you know, using phones. There's so many things that we take for granted when you're driving. And I think phones are a big issue. I mean, I speak for myself. When you're on that phone and you're having an argument, you're not paying attention to that person that's going to cross the red light, the stop sign, and a lot of accidents occur.
And some people reading paper, the paper while
Makeup,
driving.
yeah, you see it all.
And Julie,
So-
sorry, Laura.
That's okay.
Just so we are going to be doing an audit with Walk Boston. Walk Boston and the police department are going to be doing. We're going to start in the Bedford Street area, right, with Walk Boston, out of the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how far. I don't know exactly what the route is, but I think we're doing it when school gets out or around that time.
3 to
So
5.
it's going to be, October 15th. So it's going to be a very good study of how
That's
much
a very
traffic
big
we really
area.
have going through that area. So, anybody else?
When you say you educate people, are you stopping them on the street and talking? You talk about educating drivers too. They're
Actually,
moving. How do you?
stopping pedestrians, stopping vehicles.
Oh, you're
And
stopping
I'd say
them.
on average, we're handing out over 150 pamphlets a week. And we've been doing so for the past 2 or 3 months. So we've given out thousands of pamphlets.
So it's
Not
one-on-one contact.
It's a
that you're
verbal,
making.
it's a
Okay.
verbal exchange, and in lieu of a traffic citation or whatever the enforcement aspect would be, they're given a pamphlet, and we briefly go over the pamphlet. It talks about crosswalks, impaired driving. It's been a great program.
Do they seem receptive? Well,
I-
yeah, some.
Since they're not getting a ticket.
I think they're very receptive, but I think it's like people are so second nature that they're just, they're looking at it going, oh yeah, I remember that. The education has been very helpful, but again, it's the repetition. When the grant ends and we no longer educate, do they revert back to the bad habits? The bad habits have been tightened up very, because we're out there, but does it, do the bad habits continue again when the police are not out there in marked police cruisers and walking beats? And
What gets me is the stop sign. The stop sign says stop, and people told me, well, they're doing a rolling stop. If you're rolling, you're not stopping. A stop is a stop, rolling is moving.
that's what I'm, like we know, everybody in this room knows you're supposed to stop at a stop sign.
I think important too is education for people. Very famous study that was done, years ago, couple, looking at crosswalks and dangers. But, I think a big danger for crosswalks is people also need to be educated on using crosswalks. Recently in the Department of Transportation literature, starting about last year and even this past year, is that dangers of crosswalks, because people, you can't assume just because the crosswalk is there that the car is going to be stopping. I can't tell you how many people I see each morning on Bedford Street, exactly. Crosswalkers, they'll stop walking, not even looking to see if cars are coming at 15 or 20 miles, and they'll step out 10 feet. I'll stop the car, but my feeling is, you could see me coming, I couldn't see you, and you just shouldn't. Or you see people walking with their headphones on, or holding, or having a conversation. So one, you just can't assume that because it's a crosswalk, you can step in it and the cars are going to stop. In the Koppel study from years ago, it actually showed that crosswalks that were near stop signs or red lights were more dangerous. And there were higher fatalities and injuries because the car will come to a complete stop and then it'll get going. And if someone is in the crosswalk 90 degrees to it, the car has already stopped once and boom, they're going to get hit. Or a crosswalk that may be near 90 degrees to a stoplight, once the person gets that green light to turn, they may not notice you in the crosswalk. So along with driver education, you got to use education. If you're in a crosswalk near a stop sign and the car just stopped to your left or right, pause, because they're probably going to go around the corner just as you're stepping into it.
So yes, in addition to that, for the police, like the seatbelt, use the crosswalk or get fined.
Yeah.
Yeah, because many people, like you say, don't use it. The crosswalk over here, they go.
We do have different grants that address moving violations. This one is particular education, but our motor vehicle unit also has grants that are doing enforcement. So that's what we spoke about earlier, is that as a police department, we're navigating between education and enforcement, trying to find where, where the mix is.
Which is kind of neat because it kind of leaves people like,
We-
whoa,
we-
am I going to be arrested or am I going to get?
Our motor vehicle guys write a lot of citations, like make no mistake about it. Like
Yeah.
people are getting tickets in the city. I don't want you to think that we're just giving out these pamphlets and hugging everybody. People in the city are getting tickets, there are 3 or 4 separate grants going on. And our motor vehicle guys are writing tickets every day.
No,
So.
we do hug people, we do hug people.
Not everyone though. Some people get citations.
I'm joking.
A lot of the education.
I hugged a lot of people this morning.
Laura was speaking, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Speaking just this morning about the need for education and, at every level with the SROs in the schools and, just thinking of different methods for each age group.
There's a lot of things out there. It's Mr. Pacheco said it, it's the money, it's the manpower. I mean, the SROs in the schools, I met with Officer Costa, who's at Spencer Borden and Sylvia School. There's a big issue at Sylvia School. It was noticed that a lot of the striping inside the school was faded. The center line is faded. Parents are
A lot of the education has to happen with our youngest children too, because Julie had mentioned that, I think I heard it through you, that her Mass in Motion counterpart in New Bedford was doing a walk audit with second graders and asked the students what that was with the stripings. They had no idea what it was called and had no idea what it was for. That's a little disturbing. I can remember hearing about that when we were kids, when, you learned it from the first grade, you knew what it was, but they didn't even know what that was called, what a crosswalk was called, or what it was for.
I'd like to thank Boston Mass in Motion and the whole committee for encouraging the input from the senior citizen community. I think it made us feel great to be important and kind of contribute something to not only our generation, but the future generations of the city.
Julie, one good next step may be, now that the champions have been trained, and you recognize what constitutes a walking hazard, it would be really very helpful if those people could now take a walk around the different senior centers and come up with a walking route that is free or has the minimal number of hazards associated with it. Now you know what to look for. Then the next challenge I might say is, okay, come up with a route around the Maplewood Niagara Senior Center where it can be put in a little map where people know if they follow that little map, they're not going to hit the sidewalk obstacles, there'll be a crosswalk, there may or may not be a curb cut. But now that you know what to look for, rather than approaching it, okay, what needs to be fixed, what is available, it can be mapped out. Because I'm thinking years ago, one of our grants, we came up with walking routes throughout the city. But none of them were around the senior centers.
What a great way to learn about the city, and learn some.
And we have learned so many different things, especially when we went to North Park and we went to Travasso Park. Wasn't that amazing? We didn't even know about that staircase down there.
That's right.
It was so amazing.
Or
what we have. The beauty that we have and we don't even know about it.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly. And we have to spread the word, Seniors lead the way. That's that was our motto there. So I thank all the departments for being here and taking this, so seriously and being so responsive, which has been terrific. And thank you. So shall we adjourn to lunch?
Stop sign, this
You
is
take that
one. Chase
That's
that
yours, yeah. That's the
We'll have to put our name on it.
I want to thank everybody. You know, we'll be going forward. We hope to go forward, and we will let you all know what we're doing, and hopefully you'll stay involved.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.